Am I the a-hole for ruining my sister's wedding? I, 24 female, was with my ex-fiancé Nathan, 27, since I was 13 and he was 15. He was my first love, my first everything. We got engaged when I was 20, and about 6 months after we found out we were expecting. Unfortunately, I miscarried a couple days later, and that was the worst moment of our lives. We always dreamed about starting a family early, so this was a major blow to us individually and to our relationship. I fell into deep depression, and I admit I was wrong for only caring for the loss I felt, and not my partner's. We argued a lot. He partially blamed me, and I accused him of not knowing how it felt to lose a life you were growing inside you. We were hurting each other, and decided to separate for a while. That while turned into a year. We still kept in contact. I went to therapy and worked on healing myself, and he even came to a few sessions with me. We decided to get back together shortly after my 23rd birthday. However, the relationship wasn't the same. He was somewhat withdrawn from me, and I thought it was because he still blamed me, and I was sick, overthinking and worrying. It got to the point where I was going backwards in my process, so I decided to snoop through his phone. That's when I found out during the year we separated that he had been confiding in my sister, 27, and it turned to something intimate. He cut it off when we got back together, but the damage was done. She was pregnant. Turns out our parents and some of our friends knew about this. I kicked him out and cut off everybody he knew. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I got an invite to the wedding. Something snapped inside of me. I got drunk and I took a cab to my parents' house where they were throwing a party for them. Most of my family was there, and I basically showed up and gave a whole "screw you" speech to everybody. My sister ran upstairs in tears, and my parents called me Nahal for ruining the prospect of their wedding. I said good, because nobody apologized to me. Everybody just kept saying we were separated. Things happen and people fall in love. I should be happy for them. That the heart wants what it wants. The worst part is, my sister told me maybe my baby died for a reason so she could get her happy ending. I'm regretting getting drunk now because I'm not a confrontational person, but I was so upset. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Thanks for all the support and encouraging words so far. I know this update is coming so soon, but I'd like to tell you guys a joke. My sister called from an unknown number a couple minutes after I posted this. I've blocked everyone. She asked, well, more like demanded, that I return the ring fiancé bought, since it would be disrespectful to keep anything from him knowing they're starting a family. She said how immature of me for basically not sucking it up and being happy for her. She even intended to make me her maid of honor. I apologized to her for ruining her party, and told her I'd mail the ring. But as for me and her, we're done. And to tell my parents the same. I'm here bawling my eyes out waiting on my therapist to finish with another patient, so I don't turn to bottle again and go off again. Now for the top comments. I started dating my ex when I was 15 and we broke up when I was 23. If he ended up dating my sister, knocking her up, and then marrying her, I would lose my crap. While barging into a party, screaming at them wasn't exactly the healthiest decision you can make. Personally, I say screw them. They clearly don't care about you, and if you got some relief from doing what you did, I say congratulations. Not the a-hole. I did get some relief in the moment, but now I'm just so drained. Also, do not send that ring back. Sell it and use the money to help pay for your therapy. It's the least they can do. Holy crap, not the a-hole. My sister told me maybe my baby died for a reason so she could get her happy ending. Who the hell says that to anyone, let alone their sister? You had a miscarriage, which is heartbreaking enough. And then your sister swoops in and steals your partner and has the audacity to say something like that? I'm angry for you right now. I am so sorry that you've had to go through this BS. She was there for me during the miscarriage. I cried on her lap, and she was the first person I called when the doctors informed me. That broke me so much. I don't know how much therapy is going to fix me. Not the a-hole. Your own freaking sister said maybe your baby died so she could get her happy ending? Oh, hell no. I would intentionally wreck their wedding for that stuff alone. I have to be honest. I would probably show up in a wedding gown. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister when she was down? My sister is going through a divorce right now and she's devastated. for more reasons than one. When she got married, both she and her husband had kids from past relationships. He had 2 boys who were preteens at the time. She had my niece who was 4 and my nephew who was 18 months old. Back when they first got engaged, members of the family warned her she should maybe slow down. Her husband's boys were not at all happy or welcoming of the growing family, and they showed no love or like for my sister nor her kids. My sister said we were wrong, and the boys would be great older brothers and bonus sons. She was certain things would be perfect and they would be a real family in no time. 5 years later, and the world has crashed around them. She and her husband are divorcing, and while he wants to stay in her kids' lives as a dad, his boys want nothing to do with her or them. And there has been no communication with them in the 5 months since this thing started. All my sister can focus on is her feelings. How it's breaking her heart, how she misses the boys, how she doesn't know why they don't want her, etc. Nothing about her kids were devastated that the boys they called brothers, were encouraged to love and consider real brothers, never gave a crap about them, and won't even say hi if they pass each other by on the street. And I know from my nephew that it's happened more than once. It annoys me because my sister cries to all of us, and never talks about the effects it's had on her kids. The other day we were all at dinner and she was crying about it again. My niece and nephew were upset too, but she only focused on herself again. So, when my sister-in-law brought them into another room to cheer them up with some Switch games, I told my sister she needed to stop thinking about herself and start thinking about the 2 kids whose worlds were turned upside down. That she had been warned by us before, and while she could be sad, she needed to look at how much worse is it for her kids who never remembered life without their big brothers, and now they have to face they were never their brothers, and that the love was one-sided for the last 5 years. She told me I was way too harsh on her. And part of me wonders if she's right. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Someone had to stick up for the kids while she's busy wallowing in self-pity. In front of them, I don't think parents should shield their kids from everything, even slightly bad, or deny themselves emotion if kids are watching. But really, her son is what, 6? Give the poor kid some security by maybe not sobbing all your divorce woes in front of him all the time. Not the a-hole. It sounds as if this info was exactly what was needed saying, even if sister felt it was too harsh. Sister and kids need counseling, and I hope they get it. This is the kind of situation that's above the pay grade of family members, and a professional is indicated. It's the type of situation above the pay grade of even some professionals. I hope they get the best of the best. Not the a-hole. Sometimes the truth hurts. Divorce is hard, but she also has small children to think about. She should try to get herself and the little ones into therapy to help get through this. That was suggested to her before, and she ignored it. Super frustrating. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not including my brother's wife with my friend group? To cut a long story short, my brother married a woman I knew from school. She was known as the mean girl, treated everyone like crap. Her mom had the same reputation, and everyone said it was learned behavior that started because their family was wealthy. She made junior and senior year of high school a nightmare for me and most of my friends with her attitude, and not helped by teachers letting her get away with it. I didn't see her for years, and my brother met her in a coffee shop. They hit it off, and it was a surprise when she turned out to be his girlfriend. It was also awkward. I don't like her. She's changed some, but she still has a streak of it in her, but better than she was back then. They got married last year, and it hit my brother that she has no friends of her own. She had her family there, her mom who was still the biggest a-hole ever, but no friends. And so he asked me if I would include her with my friends. He knows I have a solid group of friends, and was hoping they would be her friends too. But none of my friends are on board, and honestly neither am I. So I told him no. There was a fallout from this. My brother is pissed, and we haven't had a great relationship in months. He thinks it's cruel to not try when I know she has no friends, and it's childish to dislike her over the past, and that my friends are a group of a-holes for not being willing to try. I told him not everyone wants to be friends with a mean girl who made life hell at any point in their life. That sometimes being civil is the best you can muster, and that I have always been that. It's breaking our parents' hearts because he's insisting we can't be close again unless I make more of an effort. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Homie, your brother sounds like he's being her dad. Setting up friendship with a sibling's friend group after marriage? Weird. Why not his friends? My wife can't make friends. Let's not explore why not. Why can't you be her friend? Is an absolute bizarre hill to die on for Opie's brother. It's telling he is not organizing couples outings with people he knows. If he cannot get his own friends to hang out with his wife, he can't expect his sister to force her group to welcome their high school nemesis. With a literal stranger, his wife would start the friendship in zero. With this group, it starts in negative 10,000. But with this group, he can try to make it his sister's problem instead of his. What a nahal. Not nahal. There is a reason she has no friends. Your brother married a school bully and wonders why no one wants her around. She's your sister-in-law now, and you'll have to include her in family events. But with your friends? No. Has your brother told his wife to try? To apologize? Why is it the tormented ones are supposed to try harder than the tormentor? There is a reason she has no friends. Your brother is being weird by asking this of you, and refusing to accept your no. Who cares if he stays distant? This way you see less of her. And maybe she'll learn something from this. Not today, Hall. She's probably making his life miserable, pushing to be included. And once she is, she'll make Opie miserable and alienate her friends. Not Dayhole. She can find her own friends. Not Dayhole. There is a reason she doesn't have friends. She must not have changed that much after all. She is a grown woman. She can make her own friends, providing she can rein in her meanness enough. Your brother has zero right to ask you that, and zero reason to be upset because you don't want to. There is definitely something wrong with her if she cannot make friends after high school. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my half of our cancelled wedding? My ex-fiancé and I came from a very different cultural backgrounds, and our families live on entirely different continents. I explicitly told him before we even got engaged that I always wanted a small, low-key wedding. I know that his culture have huge, lavish weddings, and he told me that this is what he wants. So when we got engaged, we had a long conversation which resulted in the compromise that we would have a big wedding in his home country, but drop some of the other aspects of his culture that I wasn't so comfortable with, or did not mesh well with my own culture. Regarding living situation and raising children. For future children, we did not have any children. This was not a huge amount of customs. In fact, we just arranged to drop one and alter two. So they streamlined better with my own culture, and we were both as happy as possible with this outcome. We began making bookings, reservations, and paying deposits for our wedding. This was all out of his bank account. This is because we did not have citizenship in each other's countries, so it was far less complicated for everything to be paid from an account of the same country. The intention was that, after we married, it would be much easier to get citizenship, and once citizenship was approved, we would merge our finances. And at this point, it would not matter who had paid for the wedding, since all our money would be together. 3 weeks before we were married, his mother and aunts got wind of one of the costumes we had arranged to alter, and lost it. Through conversations, they then found out about the other two, and eventually they threatened to disown him for being a bad son. They said I was cutting him off from his family, and that if that was what he wanted, they would make it easier for him. He begged me to change my mind, but I was firm, saying this is what we decided together. I wasn't going to drop our agreements because his family don't like it, when there are plenty of aspects my own family are uncomfortable with. Relationships are about compromise and communication, and ultimately the first priority are the two people in their relationship, not their family. He told me if I wouldn't budge, then the wedding was off. I said I had made my compromise. I still wanted to marry him under our original conditions when we had spent a long time negotiating, and originally felt were fair. Then he said that he had changed his mind and did not want to marry me. After a few weeks, he contacted me, asking me to pay him back for half the money he was unable to get back from the deposits we paid. Since it was so close to the planned date that we cancelled, and it was not a small amount of money. However, since he was the one who called off the wedding, and even at this point I would still marry him if he were to honor our original agreement, I don't think I am obliged to pay. I told him this, and he is very unhappy, since he now believes it is my fault that he cancelled for being unwilling to be flexible. Not Dayhall. I'm so sorry. You must be heartbroken. I know it probably doesn't feel like it now, but you dodged several bullets. He's backing out of this wedding now due to family pressure. This shows you that he was always going to take his family's side in arguments, and best you find out now. Sounds like you would have been one of those spouses who are extremely enmeshed in their parents' clothes, and you would have had mother-in-law and sister-in-law interference all the time. He has shown that he's happy to make agreements with you and compromises, and then doesn't respect them. For example, he has zero regard for the agreements you had and the compromises you both made regarding the wedding. He's also now ignoring the agreements about the costs. And as for future kids, that agreement you made was never going to be respected either. I'm so sorry you've had to call off your wedding so close to the date. But much easier and better to discover how spineless and dishonest he is now, rather than having to go through a divorce and costly arguments later on. Not the a-hole. Also, tell him that his family was the one to essentially cancel the wedding, so they can reimburse him. Not the a-hole. 100% this. I hope you should tell him to send the bill to the aunties who had a fit. Not the a-hole. He didn't cancel the wedding. He did. He canceled it after he decided to go against the agreement the two of you made. Since his family was in such an uproar that they threatened to disown him, tell him to get his money back from them. They can consider it the cost of getting their precious son back. Just want to add in regard to the agreement. If Opie were to be accused by him and his family of not having any honor, she could refute that he didn't honor his own promise towards her to begin with, and it was therefore him who dishonored her, not the other way around. Not the a-hole. You dodged a bullet there. Under no circumstances you pay him a thing. He called the wedding off? He pays. Not to mention the cost of the wedding was much higher because of the things he wasn't willing to compromise on. Sounds like the unfortunately common person who thinks compromise means do what I want. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife the lock on my daughter's door does not get removed till my brother-in-law and his daughters are out of my house? My brother-in-law Sammy lost his home shortly after his divorce 10 months ago. He moved in with us and brought his twin daughters, Olivia and Sloane, both 18, with him a couple of months ago. His sister, my wife, and I have one daughter, Zoe, 16, and she and her cousins aren't close but get along fine. Now, Olivia and Sloane have no respect for Zoe's privacy. None. They used to walk into her room and take everything they get their hands on. Makeup, phone accessories, clothes, school laptop, etc. Zoe complained a lot, and I've already asked the girls to respect Zoe's privacy and stop taking things. My wife and Sammy saw no issue with this. After all, they're girls, and this is typical teenage girls' behavior. But I completely disagreed. Last straw was when Zoe bought a $60 MAC makeup kit that looks like a paint set. That she saved up for over a month, and one of the girls, Sloane, took it without permission and ruined it by mixing shades together while using it. Don't know much about makeup, but that's what Zoe said when she found a kit on her bed and was crying. I told my wife, and she said she'd ask Sloane to apologize, but I got Zoe a lock after I found she was moving valuable belongings out the house because of this incident. Sammy and his daughters saw the lock and weren't happy, and the girls were extremely upset. Sammy asked about it, and I straight up told him, but he said, my daughters aren't thieves. It's normal that girls of the same age borrow each other's stuff. Then he said Zoe could easily get another makeup kit for $15 from Walmart, and shouldn't even be buying expensive adult makeup in the first place, and suggested my wife take care of this defect in Zoe's personality trying to appear older than she is. Then he accused me of being overprotective and babying Zoe with this level of enablement. I told him this is between me and my wife, but she shamed me for putting a lock on Zoe's door for her cousins to see and preventing them from spending time with her, saying I was supposed to treat them like daughters. Then she demanded I remove it, but I said this lock does not get removed till her brother and his daughters are out of our house. She got mad I was implying we kick them out and said her family will hate me for this. So I reminded her that I let Sammy and his family move in, which is something her own family refused to do. So she should start with shaming/blaming them for not taking their own son and nieces/granddaughters in. If it wasn't for her family's unwillingness to help, we wouldn't be dealing with this much disturbance at home. Now everyone's been giving me and Zoe silent treatment, and my wife is very much upset over this. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Don't back down. You are the only one sticking up for Zoe. If her cousins want to use expensive makeup, give them your wife's. I guarantee she won't appreciate sharing anymore. They need to start behaving like appreciative guests. I love this idea. Not today, LOP. You have your daughter's back and totally get her need for privacy and autonomy over her stuff. I'm disgusted that her own mother isn't more supportive. Please lend some wife's makeup to the twins, because obviously it's what girls do, isn't it? They love to borrow and use each other's stuff, without asking. Not. Bonus if Opie goes into Sammy's room to borrow things without asking. Underwear, an expensive watch or something, returning it with visible wear and tear. Not today, Hull. Your wife harbors someone who tells you that Zoe has a defect in her personality for buying an expensive makeup kit? That's the kind of thing that has people thinking about divorce. Exactly. As a mother myself, I cannot fathom how any mother would let someone treat their child like that, even if it's his family. That would have bought them a one-way ticket out of my front door. If your kid can't count on you to protect them, who can they count on? Not today, Hull. Not today, Hull. Your daughter doesn't feel like she has any privacy or respect in her own home, and you gave her a lock to give her back her privacy. You tried talking to your wife, your brother-in-law, and your nieces, and that got you nowhere. If your daughter has to accept 3 additional adults living in her home, they need to accept her very reasonable boundaries with not taking and ruining her things. Good for you showing your daughter you respect and support her. They are 18. This is 100% vindictive. Mixing and destroying a new palette and leaving it on Zoe's bed screams of malice. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for abandoning my roommate because her mother ate my lunch? My 23 male roommate's 22 female, mother 42 female, has been heavily overstepping and consuming all the food that I cook for my meals when I'm going to work. For context, her mother is also technically a roommate as we split the rent 3 ways, with me paying half and her daughter paying a quarter each. To get her mother to agree to pay half of her rent, my roommate, a longtime friend from college, begged me to let her mother on the lease, as this was the only way she'd agree because she wouldn't pay for something that wasn't hers, and so now her mother comes and goes as she pleases. The problem arises because I cook and I'm fairly good at it. I'd have to because my workplace is isolated and there are no restaurants nearby that I could make it to on my hour for lunch. I wake up at 6 a.m. to make sure that my meals are ready, because I'm a picky eater and the things I like are fairly complicated. Now, roommate's mom has been serving herself for my meals. It started small, and I was okay with that because I sometimes have leftovers. However, certain dishes do not permit that, and now she has taken to eating out of my packed lunches when there's no leftovers, saying, "Sorry, I was just so pickish." Or, "You know how I love your cooking? I couldn't help myself." After the second week of no lunches, I had enough and decided I would leave and pay off my part of the lease. I'm furious, but I do love my roommates as she's like a sister to me. She has recently found out that I'm looking for a new apartment, but thinks my reason is too petty. She said it's just food and I shouldn't abandon her over it. I have been having second thoughts about leaving now because I don't want to hurt her, but her mother is still doing it after having myself and her daughter confront her. Would I be wrong for leaving? Definitely not today, Hull. A grown woman can't help herself and so she has to eat your packed lunches? Good grief, how bad is her impulse control? More likely, she respects you so little. It is so selfish she just doesn't give a damn if you're hungry or not. She feels entitled to the food. If your roommate can't even recognize how rude that is and stop her mom, then honestly, she deserves to be abandoned. Though if she's a real friend, she'll understand and continue to socialize with you after you're out. My money's on she's not a real friend though. I'm hoping my roommate will remain my friend and understand, but the comments here are really solidifying my decision. Her mother doesn't even get mad when I confront her. She just laughs it off and does it again. I'm really just tired at this point, but I will miss my roomie if our relationship suffers because of this. Not today, Hull. You aren't looking to kick them out. You're looking for your own place where you no longer have to worry about people crossing your boundaries. Her mom knows exactly what she's doing when she has eaten the lunch you have prepared for yourself the next day. Her daughter may not understand and thinks it's a selfish reason, but it's a valid reason. What starts out as food will turn into something else. She's eating all your food and borrowing/taking all your things, and you'll be petty for being upset over it. This has also been a worry of mine. It started with the leftovers, but has escalated to my packed lunches. I don't believe her mother would ever steal from me, but I worry she may start feeling entitled to my food and start pressuring me to cook for her as well. She can't see how this is wrong and boundary stomping? It is enough reason to leave her. She has no concept of how to treat other people. She herself is a very good friend to me and has never done anything like this. Her mother is also a very sweet lady most of the time. Except for this, it really was a perfect living situation, which is why I think it's so hard for me to make this decision myself. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting off the lease and leaving my roommate to fend for herself? Okay, I know the title seems bad, but hear me out. My friend female 19 and I female 19 decided to move in together this May. We've known each other for more than a decade, and I consider her one of my best friends. We always talked about living together, and 2 months ago we got an opportunity and made it into reality. We signed a 1-year lease on a 2-bedroom apartment not too far from our college and jobs. Well, yesterday she comes into my room and says she wants to talk to me about something. She reveals the actual reason for her moving out of her parents' house was because she's pregnant. Her dad is the type of guy that thinks if you're grown enough to have relations, then you're grown enough to live on your own. Not under his roof type of guy. Anyways, I had a load of questions. And eventually she revealed that she was almost 5 months along, and her boyfriend was moving in, and I was livid. She said it would be good for us because the rent will be cheaper, which is true, but that's not why I was mad. I realized she knew before signing the lease and didn't think to mention she was pregnant and moving someone else in. I'm sorry, but I did not sign up to be living in an apartment with some man and a baby. The main reason I moved out of my own home was because I'm the oldest of 4 younger siblings. There was too much going on at home, and I thought moving out I would finally have my peace. After we talked, we both went to our own rooms. And after a couple hours, I called to talk to her again, and made up my mind that I do not want to live here anymore because of the obvious circumstance. She got mad as expected, but most of all because she doesn't have much savings, and was planning to rely on my share of the rent to stay afloat while she's on leave. I've already talked to the landlord about paying to break myself from the lease. I'm sorry, but I did not sign up for this. She claims there was no contract for not getting pregnant, but there is a contract in place for us, the lease. But I feel like that's common sense when you're living with someone. I feel like an awful friend, because I'm not being supportive, but this isn't what I agreed to. I can see why she would be upset with me because of my sudden decision to move with 1 month notice. Especially since she doesn't have much savings and is expecting a baby soon. On the other hand, she should have been honest with her intentions of starting a family because I would have said no to moving in. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. She didn't tell you before for a reason. She knew you wouldn't agree to it, and now wants to guilt trip you into staying? Not the a-hole. Also, if you were so good friends to move in together, why did she not talk to you about being pregnant and then later ranting about her dad kicking her out? Also, the boyfriend moving in without landlord approval, which sounds like she never was going to do, may get you all evicted since the lease is only for 2 people. Not the a-hole. She was sneaky. Did not disclose her motives or situation. You were not obligated in any way. Right. I'm sure she was counting on OP for rent money and help with the baby. All without asking. The entitlement. Not the a-hole. I wouldn't want to live with a newborn either, and she was being deceptive. Boyfriend can make up the rent difference, especially as he'll be living there anyways. Unless he's jobless. Last story. Am I the a-hole for packing my roommate's things and leaving them in the hall while she was at work? So my best friend has been living with me for months since her parents threw her out. At first things were fine, but slowly started to change. She has mental illnesses, which I appreciate and understand, but she went off her medication, stating she could not afford the co-pays, which didn't make sense to me as she could afford to eat out nearly every night. Eventually, going off the meds turned her into a different person. She would drop her insulin needles on the floor, and no matter how many times I reminded her not to as I have a cat, she just said she either didn't notice or forgot because she's spacey. I'm not checking for dust with a white glove, but this is my home, and the place was constantly trashed. She never did her own dishes, left trash everywhere, and have eaten food in the fridge for weeks. It got so bad, I either had to clean up her messes or deal with roaches. There would be many days that she would be in an awful mood, and I could do no right.
If I gave her space, I was ignoring her and hated her. If I tried to talk to her, I was nagging and pestering. Eventually, I got fed up. I had tried over and over to have a conversation with her and ask for just minor changes. Get back on your meds, stop taking out your bad moods on me, and for the love of God, just clean up. We have roaches. Her paranoia had gotten so bad that she accused me of being her online boyfriend and catfishing her for over 8 months. Finally, one night, when she was in a particularly bad mood, she crossed a line regarding my cat. I simply could not take it anymore. She worked 12 to 7, and last week when she left, I called a friend. We packed everything she owned as nicely as we could and stacked it all in the hallway. I then blocked her and everything, locked my door and waited. She got home, saw her things, and threw a fit. She was banging on the door for over 3 hours. I did not leave or even respond as I didn't think there was anything to say. Eventually, she called her parents and went back there. At the time, it seemed like the best, cleanest, and safest way to do this, but some of my other friends think I was too harsh, and I should have given her more time or another ultimatum. I hate hurting people and feel awful, but I was ready to check myself into the psych ward, and I couldn't handle that line ever being crossed again. So Reddit. Am I the a-hole? Edit. There seem to be 2 questions popping up. One is what I did was perfectly lawful where I live, as she was not on my lease, had never received mail and did not pay rent, so therefore was not considered a legal resident. If anything, I could have gotten in trouble for having her there. 2 is I did give her an ultimatum of a month, where she needed to have made a visible effort in getting better. And not only did that not happen, and no change was even attempted, but she also crossed that line with my cat. She was aware this was a possibility, as I did not do this with 0 warning. Not a-hole. This was not a knee-jerk reaction. You gave her plenty of warnings, ultimatums, and leeway. This was a last resort after you tried everything else. You do not need to feel any guilt for looking out for yourself. Not a-hole. I bet their friends are saying that because she might come knocking at one of their doors next. And they don't want to take her in either. The nuance is that they know she's back with her parents. So these friends aren't even worried about that. They're expecting Opie to bend over backwards just so they don't have to deal with the drama of Opie's best friend complaining. It's the easiest thing in the world to be generous in somebody else's dime and labor. Depending on where you live, what you did might be an unlawful eviction. You did say she had been there for months. However, legalities aside, you did the best thing for you. And for your cat. Not a-hole. I looked into the laws where I live beforehand. She was not on my lease, had never received mail here and therefore was not technically a tenant. If anything, I could have gotten in trouble as my lease states 1 person living here. Where we live states that simply putting any amount of floor space aside for someone's personal belongings constitutes a right to tenancy. It is nuts. My BFF went through hell recently with her husband's cousin, and this was a concern. She is the salt of the earth. She and hubby had a cousin come out to work in their business, were going to pay for his commercial road license, and were not asking for rent, knowing what that would mean. The cousin blew the opportunity, and I think it was on heroin. Anyhow, they had to give him the boot, and she was terrified he was going to try to stay based on the fact that he had a spot in the office for his gear. It pays to know the laws. Not a-hole. You tried to do something nice for your friend and got burned for it. You gave her plenty of warnings, and she decided to ignore them. That is on her. Plus, it sounds like she was a danger to your cat. The friends who say you were too harsh should be able to offer her a room in their homes or pay for some nights in a hotel. Should be easy to do from up on their high horses.